Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is day 0 of my plant growing series, growing sweet banana peppers from seeds. It's a seed packet from Ferry Morse. It says it's a container variety for 12+ inch pots. Look up my name Melvin Way on YouTube to find my videos at any time. There's going to be many episodes to this plant growing series, and if you follow the rest of my channel, that's how I operate. I come out with episodes, and then in the very end, when everything's done, I make a finale episode, whether the plant lives or dies, or I have a harvest or not, and then I make a compilation episode. So these seed packets are normally a little bit easier to open than this. It all depends on how they're glued, but I've had good experiences with all these Ferry Morse seed packets in the past, so I expect this to be no different. Sweet banana pepper is a pepper that I've never eaten actually. I just looked through maybe hundreds of seed packets on the shelves at Lowe's, and I decided that, you know what, this has a pretty picture, I'll just go with it. And the seeds are quite what I'd expect with peppers. That's how they look, and there are so many in there, well over 100, maybe even 200. So that's total overkill. I'll be using maybe less than 20. So just to give you a close-up of what these look like, they don't look different from any other dried out pepper seeds. So it's a really beautiful, attractive yellow pepper. I'm using the same pot and potting mix clay soil that I got from the hills in the nearby neighborhood that I used for my pineapple crown. So this pineapple crown went nowhere, and I pretty much canceled the series and wrapped that up. I didn't even make a compilation video for that. Normally I always do, but this one was just kind of boring and it went nowhere. So as you can see, I'm digging up all that potting mix and clay soil. Clay soil has a reddish orange tint. Potting mix turns a very dark brown / black when it's moist and has been decomposing for a very long time. So there's a school of thought that potting mix is not supposed to be used for more than a few months, and in many of my plant growing series, my pots, I've used it for almost years. First I sterilize it. I steam sterilize or bake it to get rid of things like fungus, gnat larvae, spider mites, which are terrible. But in this case, in the previous series for the pineapple crown, I added a lot of clay soil from the wild, unsterilized, to try to introduce beneficial microbes that can aid in decomposition. And what I'm doing here is I'm mixing all of that after I've removed quite a bit, a few double handfuls of that potting mix. So potting mix loses volume over time, and when it stays wet it just keeps decomposing and decomposing. It has some benefits and it has some cons as well. So here are the seeds. I'm going to plant as many as I feel comfortable with, just in case not many of them germinate. So in some plant growing series everything germinates, and then my pot will be very crowded if I do things like this. So I have one seed in the center, 6 in a hexagon around it. It's not that exact, but you get the idea. I have 11 in a circle on the outside, so that'll be a total of 18 seeds. I'd be surprised if nothing germinates, but since this is a plant growing series episode 1 published on my channel, obviously it worked to some degree. So it's very nice and geometric, and I think that's about right. There's 18 seeds. So that should be good for a pot this size. Of course, if they were all to germinate, then I'd have to cull some, because I know pepper plants can get quite big quite fast. So I'm layering on some wild clay soil that I got from the local neighborhood in the hills, and I think I might be doing more than 1/4 of an inch here, but I chose to do this method because I think trying to jam them down there 1/4 of an inch with your fingernails is very, very difficult to do, and they would all be at different depths. So maybe this is 3/8 of an inch or whatever, 1/2 an inch. Actually, I don't think it's 1/2 an inch. I think 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch, and 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters for those of you who don't live in the US. So I noticed there was a live worm in there, a grub of some sort, and it's obviously afraid of this metal shovel. It's surprisingly fast for a grub or a worm. Never seen anything flinch that fast. I didn't know they could move that fast. So this is the kind of grub that was in my passion fruit pot from days past. I had a very long-standing passion fruit vine series, and I saw two of these grubs in my pot when I would water a lot. So I don't know what they eat, but obviously they exist in the wild. How it can survive in that plastic bag full of wild clay dirt that I harvested maybe weeks ago, I don't know. So I got up to toss this grub onto a giant bird of paradise leaf outside, and the birds got really excited. Local birds in this courtyard are mostly lesser goldfinches and house finches. So as you can hear now, there's a lot of chirping. They were super excited to see it the moment I got it to start wiggling around, and maybe they saw it well before I did. I'm sure the birds are very inquisitive creatures, and they want to know what I'm doing and whether that will generate any food sources for them. A few birds stopped by on the edge of my balcony, on the rail and on the concrete. In the first few days I was doing all this activity. I tend my plants in the mornings, so the birds are really active throughout the day, starting from maybe slightly before 5 a.m. usually. So I'm watering. Again, I have no idea how that grub could have survived all that insulated heat within that bag. Granted, it's above me, as you see. That bag perhaps doesn't get that much sunlight a day. So I can understand it wouldn't get too hot, and dirt is very insulating and will maintain its temperature, which will mostly be cold because it's in the shade, maybe 23, 22 hours a day, and at night it gets pretty cold. So I could see how that grub could survive, but at the same time I don't know what it's eating. There is a bit of organic material in there, but it's not a whole lot. It's heavily decomposed. So it's day 2. I'm wondering, did I water enough? So I watered some more. In the beginning, it's impossible to overwater, but once a seedling has developed for a few days, once you see a shoot system grow a few centimeters or inches, generally you got to worry about root rot. That's never the case in the very early phases like this. It's only been 2 days. So it's okay if I water a little bit more, as long as the bottom watering tray doesn't overflow. So it's day 20. It's yet another cloudy day of May gray in coastal San Diego County. So the sky is overcast, and hence the videography is bad here. It's all grainy. And I know some people love taking photographs and shooting videos in cloudy conditions, but I don't. Not for the purposes of things like creating profile pictures or background wallpaper or even YouTube videos. It just really saps the quality. So as you can see, the stem has a little bit of a purplish reddish tinge on top. It's more pale white at the bottom, and it's got 2 leaves. I don't know if those are cotyledons. They're folded up in one direction. So the next day there was finally some sun, and as you can see, the video quality is much higher now. Everything looks a lot prettier, and the leaves have straightened up. They've unfurled a little bit, and there's a bit more color to the stem. Granted, it's kind of hard to compare to yesterday when May gray was in full effect. And at the end of the next day, I noticed this the day before actually, the leaves folded up. So you can see just how bad the videography becomes when it's pitch dark. I didn't feel the need to get a flashlight. I just wanted to illustrate this simple point, that the leaves are essentially flapping from between day and night. So it's day 24. Leaves have unfurled a little bit, although they're uncharacteristically curled and tapered upwards compared to most plants that have grown. But almost every plant growing experience is different, and there's a little weed you can see from the wild clay soil that's germinated to its left. So I'm watering, It's been a very, very long time, and I have examined this pot and others and their watering trays, and I don't think I ever watered to the point where there was any significant amount of water accumulating in the tray, but the pot was quite heavy, so I knew there was a lot of water in there. It's day 28. The days of May Gray seem to have passed, although in the morning sometimes it takes until 10 or 11 a.m. Pacific time for the sun to finally come out from behind the clouds. So there hasn't been that much growth, but you can notice a second set of leaves. I believe these are all true leaves. Sometimes plants don't have visible cotyledons. And this is day 31. So we have yet a little bit more growth. It's nothing to write home about really, but the second set of leaves are getting slightly bigger. And the original set as well, they sort of look like wavy, ruffled blades of grass at this point. They're not wide. They're just getting longer. And this specimen displays extreme phototropism. It keeps bending, so no matter how many times I spun the pot around, it would just curve towards the sun almost immediately, sometimes within, I think, 20 or 30 minutes. So it's day 33, and there's been yet more progress. The second set of true leaves is yet more noticeable, and this is just way behind schedule in my opinion. The packet said 72 days until harvest, and guess what? It's already day 33, and that's all we have. While clay soil is very, very nutrient rich, so I mixed a lot in there, and the top layer is all clay soil. This should be getting a lot of nutrients. I don't know why it's growing so slowly, and I haven't used any chemical fertilizers such as from Miracle Grow, as I did with many plant growing series in the past. So I think it's doing decently well. There are many plants that really accelerate and go parabolic, exponential in growth after a while, but at least this doesn't have some variant of what I call potting mix syndrome, where it just falls over and has trouble standing up when you water it. So that's good, and it looks like only 1 out of 18. This one on the perimeter has germinated. It's kind of a sad sight, actually. Maybe I could plant something else in the center if nothing more happens, but for now I'll try watering and soaking the entire surface again. I'd really like to get more than one, although once it gets going, I don't think I'll need more than one to get all the way to sweet banana peppers. I have a bok choy series going on concurrently. They're both severely behind schedule in my opinion. I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that I don't get that many hours of sun per day on this balcony. It's only half sun, not full sun. So thanks for watching, and please stay tuned for further updates. Hello and welcome back. It's day 38. It's the second episode of this Growing Sweet Banana Peppers from Seed series. As you can see, there's this little white furry flying insect that's landed on one of my true leaves in the center. I can't squish it like that, but I could try to bat it away with one of my fingers. Oftentimes bugs like this will play this childish hide around the tree trunk kind of game where if you try to touch them and brush them off, they'll just go to the other side of the leaf or the stem and repeat that infinitely and never get the hint and go away. So I'm going to try to bat that off so I can get rid of it. I think it's a parasitic pest. As you can see, the bottom of the stem is sort of a reddish color. I think that might just be a coloration feature of a lot of nascently developing plants, since I've experienced that with many different plant series, but it could also be a sign that the plant is under stress and has a front row seat on the struggle bus and has a lot of problems that need to be dealt with, such as whatever is causing the plant to be underdeveloped at this point. So I squished this with my thumb later on and dealt with it. If any of you can ID this insect, please leave a note in the comments. And I bought a new box of Miracle Grow for different reasons. Not really for this plant actually. This new version has more micronutrients. It has all these trace metals in it, not just nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It's got boron, copper, iron, manganese, molybdenum, and zinc. So that's good. Maybe it's a upgrade over the previous version that I had for many years. So I made a very dilute solution. For the first time in my life, I actually followed the Miracle-Gro instructions to dilute this stuff. Maybe not to the T, but I'm still sort of using it wrong in this case because this is an outdoor plant, and the concentration that's in the squirt bottle is for indoor plants. So there's a lot less of it because if there's a lot less light being received indoors, then there won't be as much of a need for development and such a high metabolism to use stuff. So anyway, the reason I'm using this here is because in this pot I've already used some Miracle-Gro fertilizer. I sprinkled some crystals on top of some barely buried seeds, so I might as well, since the whole thing is tainted in the eyes of people who hate stuff like that. So it's day 46, and there's a spider mite, an adult, on the underside of one of those leaves. It probably spread from this raspberry plant to the left of us. So I'm using the spectricide triazicide insect killer, and it's got pyrethrins, it's got pyperonal butoxide to help deliver that. So pyrethrins are a class of insecticides naturally occurring chrysanthemum flowers, and they've been extracted and refined. And maybe there's even some synthetic analogs out there, but you need a delivery system. Some compounds are semi-dissolvable in water or not really dissolvable, so you need to put them in organic solvents, whether that's going to be ethanol, like compounds or whatever. Yeah, you just have to dissolve them in various chemicals to try to deliver them to the insect pests that you're trying to get rid of. Otherwise, if it's not really water soluble, it's not going to get into anything that you spray on. So this applies to most of the plants that I've grown or will grow in the future. It can be applied on the day of harvest, so it's pretty weak. Pyrethrins don't do anything to mammals like us, but they get rid of invertebrates, so they can be dangerous to fish, and you don't want to get this into the water supply. But scale insects, earwigs, I never get the cool stuff like tomato hornworms. I always get things like spider mites instead, the disgusting little vermin. So yeah, store this in a cool place, and obviously don't spray it into your eyes. So I'm just going to shake this and apply it. The top is a little weird. It's sort of, the button is weird, and I thought there would be a straw to stick in, kind of like an air duster, but that's not how this is. So don't follow the instructions of holding it 18 to 24 inches. Step back a few feet and give it a test spray on something. Because if you spray it in that pyperonal butoxide, that white enhancer, cakes on everything like it does here, and you spray too long because it's your first time and you're inexperienced, you're going to burn the leaves. So everything will pretty much burn your leaves if you keep spraying. You know, if it's not water and you keep spraying that insecticidal soap that I've used on the raspberry plant, you're going to burn the leaves. So this is no exception. So it's day 48. The leaves keep wilting in the morning sun. And just on another note, you know, I know some people are going to say, yeah, just douse your whole plant in neem oil and set it on fire and, you know, throw it over your shoulder, you're done. But I have very severe doubts about the efficacy of a lot of these so-called organic pest control methods. Or you can spend a lot of money to buy predators of spider mites and whatnot, but yeah, you can't beat the efficacy of something in a spray can. Pyrethrins are actually pretty weak. They have a very short half-life, so that's why they said on a can you can spray even up to the and on the day of harvest. Whereas, like I just don't think neem oil is going to get the job done. So it's day 53, and I noticed some growth, but the roots seemingly can't supply water fast enough whenever the sun strikes this thing. It's really bizarre. Maybe I just haven't watered deep enough. So the soil mostly on the top is clay mixed with potting mix. And when clay dries out, it becomes almost impermeable for a long time. You have to keep watering and watering. So maybe I just need to water deeper to get the job done. But there's definitely growth. I mean, you can see so many new sets of leaves, but they're all ugly and wrinkled like that. So that's not a good sign. It sort of is a good sign that it's growing, but... And this trick of spraying or squirting some light fertilizer at the base of the stem, it does two things. It fertilizes and it aerates the base and hopefully the top portion of the root system, just in case oxygenation is a problem due to the heaviness of the clay soil. But who knows what's really going on in there. I figured the clay soil would be very nutritious, so this thing would just grow like gangbusters, but it's not doing that. And we're already up to 50-something days, and it's not anywhere near harvest. I think the packet said 72 days or whatever to harvest. That's pretty much a joke at this point. So it's day 56, and my sweet banana pepper plant is looking a little bit better. I think all the waterings may have helped. You see little strands of gossamer silk. Basically, spiders are constantly trying to spin webs. There's a lot of spider mites due to the growing mediums I'm using and mango seed smoothies and whatnot. There's just a lot of bugs in this zone. Maybe it has to do with all the plants in the courtyard too. So there's constantly all these half-spun webs or threads of webs that I need to brush out of the way. So it's day 57, the day after, and this will be the third pot to receive some mango seed smoothie as fertilizer. I'm going to blend these two mango seeds. These are actually good seeds. They're pale and not rotten looking, and I don't know if that matters in the grand scheme of things, since this is all going to rot anyway after it's blended and poured on top, but for aesthetic reasons it does matter. So we're going to give that some time. After a few minutes passed and it's warmed up in the water, those are frozen, I blended, and as you can see, this is totally different from, say, a banana peel smoothie. It doesn't oxidize before our very eyes. It just maintains this sort of a powdered milk consistency. So that's pretty good. And yeah, we're going to pour it on top and see what happens. So for my raspberry plant and my Joshua tree, I noticed really good results doing this. I would not include any kind of fruit peels, but this pouring action was a little violent, so it seems like I may have disturbed the soil, especially around here. It sort of exposed one of the mango seeds that I had buried underneath. So I'm going to look into that and see if they're having any progress, and if not, I'm going to have to get rid of that because I don't want these giant masses of moldy mango seed to fester in there. So as you can see, the angle of the balcony is a little geared towards water running off the edge. So we're going to rinse off this blender and pour the rest of it in. There's a lot of material that we don't want to go to waste. So the pot is tilted, and you can see all the fluid more or less favoring the side where the seed is, the seedling. And I think that's actually good for the seedling. I don't know if it had anything to do with germination. I don't remember the exact orientation of the pot originally. I need to go back and check, but I think maybe since all the water runs towards the edge that's facing the balcony, and that also gets more sun, as you can see as we're approaching noon here, this seedling, or the seed, originally just got more water and more sunlight, more warmth, and that's why it germinated. So you can see all the water running towards there. So it's 11 days later, and I did a second application. I brought the Joshua tree over, and all three of these plants need to be bombed like that, because the Joshua tree is actually okay. I think scale insects keep showing up once in a while, but they don't reproduce very fast like the spider mites do. But yeah, we're in crisis mode here, so I had really no choice. It's day 60, and I'm going to dig out the molding mango seeds. This has been exposed, and I saw white globules of mold or whatever. I mean, it could be mycorrhizal fungi, mushrooms, but I don't think I'm seeing that in any of my pots. It's more just like nasty garden variety molds of the bad kind. As you can see, spots in the background. So it's day 60 and it's not looking bad at all. The leaves are a lot bigger and new leaves are popping out. I know the old leaves don't look aesthetic and they all look sort of curly and dry. So it's only been, was it 3 days since the mango seed smoothie was poured on top. Maybe it's already having an effect. Maybe it doesn't need to decompose for a long time, or maybe because it's so finely blended, the decomposition with microbes mixed in, it just provides for a giant surface area by which nutrients can break down and be released. It also seals in moisture too, which it seems this plant was struggling to get enough of. So on the other side, it's a little lighter on the mango seed smoothie, but I'm surprised after 3 weeks, I don't even see nary a root here. So not even root tips came out. So I've tried a lot of mango seed germination experiments since my first series ended earlier in 2018. That was actually started, let's see, halfway through 2017. So this was clearly a failure. Don't ever trust burying a large seed in wet dirt and hoping something's going to pop out. More often than not, it won't. And it's just going to rot away and generate fungus gnats. So I'm going to smooth this over, and I could fertilize more in the future, but you can see clearly the thick crust of mango seed smoothie is on the side of the seed, which is where it should be and where it needs to be. The other side of the pot is a little bit irrelevant right now unless I plant something else there. So that's basically my solution for now, and I hope by the time I have a third episode to show you that the development will have been huge. Welcome back for another episode of Growing Sweet Banana Peppers from Seeds. It's day 63. It's the finale episode of this plant growing series. As you can see, I have a new problem. There's a carpet of mold bloom. It's a bluish gray mold that I've never seen before. It's really disgusting, and it covers mostly the mango seed smoothie that dried out into a crust. But that hasn't happened for the other plant growing series. So overall, I'd say the mango seed smoothie idea is a great free idea for organic fertilization. Mango seeds are very rich, and that provides for a lot of nutrients. After you blend them, that high surface area to volume ratio of the particles enables microbes such as mold and other fungi to break everything down really quickly and get the nutrients to your plants. So that deformation in the leaf on top is likely a result, a carryover artifact of bad times from the first 60 days where the plant was malnourished. So it was growing very, very slowly in a stunted fashion. But it seems to be accelerating growth, this entire plant. It's got a lot of bud activity, it's going to fork and so on. So I see good things happening going forward. And that's what happens when you water this moldy mess. A cloud of spores flies out. Luckily for me, first time I did this, it seems like the wind currents favored the mold spores just wafting out away from me over the balcony rail. So at least most of that didn't get on me. So on day 68, you can see that it doesn't look, yeah, it pretty much looks as gross as it did before. So I don't know how I'm going to deal with this problem. That looks like something you would find on something in a Ziploc bag indoors that was soaking in water, like a wet sandwich or something that's just been sitting in a drawer or something for 3 weeks indoors. Not something you would expect to see outdoors. Mold like this typically doesn't happen outdoors on stuff like this. But then again, who pours mango seed smoothies on top of the soil for fertilization? So I'm watering again, and once again this cloud of spores flies off. So I'm just going to hold my breath and duck back into the living room, wait for things to settle down and dilute and blow away after I'm done watering here. So I wonder how long I'm going to have to put up with this. It's not something I'd want to deal with day after day. So it's day 72, and as you can see, there are flower buds. So it's a nice development, and the top seems to have forked. Seems like the plant is going to get a lot taller and also bushier as well, and you can see other newer, fresher buds there as well. And a jumping spider, these things seem to be skipping frames when they move. They have hydraulic joints, which are very powerful and very fast, kind of like wolf spiders and many other species of spider. So it's moving in a stuttering fashion. Truth is, it's moving so fast that our eyes and the camera can't detect a lot of those frames in between. So it seems like it's sort of a broken slideshow, or like a computer program that's running with memory leak or something like that. So it just kind of stutter steps all over the place faster than your eyes can detect. It's an interesting spider. I haven't seen one of these for many years. Typically, I don't ever encounter these in San Diego. Can't even remember the last time I've seen one of these in the American Southwest. We have a lot of other spiders. Indoor spiders typically are daddy long legs. So I don't know why this spider is patrolling my plant. It looks like, well, we see a few threads of silk. I don't know if that's from the spider or from spider mites. And every time I ask that question, it always turns out to be spider mites. So on day 77, third time I water, I decided I'd have a running vacuum tube and stay at a distance and do this. Now I know there's a risk that I might suck in some water and get the filter bag inside wet, but as long as you keep your distance from the water spray and don't have the vacuum inhale too much water, you'll be fine. It's a good insurance policy just in case watering like this kicked up another cloud of mold spores. But it seems like by the third time the problem was solved. With a lot of baking in the sun and a lot of the spores had already flown off, it seems like the problem, the worst of it, is finally over. And I'm really glad for that, because every time I dealt with a cloud of mold spores like that, I felt like I had to take a shower right afterwards, because if it blows the wrong way, it'll probably just get all over your skin, your clothes, and whatnot. So yeah, you probably won't feel clean for the rest of the day until you take a shower after that. So problem solved, I guess. And now I can water freely and watch this plant accelerate in growth. It's day 82. Seems like the leaves are still sort of droopy, which is disappointing. There are some threads of gossamer silk, as you can see. Don't know if those are from spiders or spider mites. A lot of these small leaves on the bottom are underdeveloped, but they're all largely irrelevant now. They have long petioles. This plant doesn't get full sun. It gets 4 hours of 4.5 maybe a day of morning sun. And it's got flowers, beautiful little white flowers. They're not very big, especially compared to the size of the leaves. But as I'll show you in a few seconds, they're beautiful in their own right. And we got a lot more flower buds coming on the way. A lot of the new leaves look healthy, so I'm glad for that. We can give this a spin so we can check the flowers out at a different angle. But I have the feeling that this plant's going to get a lot taller. See a fungus gnat there. Those aren't really a bother anymore. Their numbers have drastically decreased since I started blasting my balcony plants with pyrethrins every few weeks. So some of these leaves do look a little yellow mottled, and I'm pretty sure that some spider mites flew over on strands of silk from the raspberry plant in the background, which now has this yellow-green tint to it. It looks quite unhealthy compared to how it was before. So that's like ground zero for this spider mite Armageddon. And if any of you have ever dealt with spider mites, I'm sure you'll agree that it's one of the most devastating infestations you can have. And not all insecticides, chemical insecticides, work on them as well, but pyrethrins seem to work even though they're not insects. They're more arachnids. But pyrethrins can kill those and spiders too, I think. So the flowers, they look pretty good. We'll get a closer look. There's a little bit of purple on the inside. And as you can see, there are other buds that are pretty prominent at the nodes. The stems and the nodes have these purple tinges to them. So it's makes for a very attractive plant. The flowers, unfortunately, face down. I don't know what the purpose of that is, but I guess since the peppers are going to grow from them, maybe they'll just kind of droop downwards, and that's more mechanically stable. So it's hard to film these flowers up close in macro detail, but you can see there's beautiful hints of purple in there, and 6 simple but elegant white petals that are pointy at the ends. So I've seen some bees come and feed on these every day, and I'm sure the pollination is getting done, whether or not it's needed. So we'll see what happens. I'm expecting good things in the weeks to come, although realistically you've already seen the thumbnail for this and guessed that I got to the finish line. I consider getting fruit for any fruiting vegetable or herb or plant to be a hallmark of success, essentially the finish line for a plant growing series. And this may be one of my last plant growing series, and by that I don't mean I'm ending the channel or anything. It just means for the time being I see myself doing something different. Do some more indoor growing, which I haven't done since 2014, but I'll just compile footage for maybe a month or two of various things that I'm growing in artificial conditions and watch the development of the root systems, which I think is also very exciting. And there will be far less problems indoors compared to what I've experienced in just the 2 to 3 months out here on this balcony in the new apartment. It'll be a welcome change. No bugs, no parasites indoors, just non-stop growth that's easily observable. Granted, it won't be under the beauty of natural sunlight, which I love filming under. As you can see here on day 103, after I got back from a very long vacation, this plant really shot up. And after being gone for 2 weeks, and it's been maybe 3 weeks since the last filming, you can see 5 of these yellow banana peppers that are mostly curly. That one looks more like Chili's logo, and up there you can see a deformed one that's under the 5th one, the highest one. So it's already harvest time, but a lot of these leaves are droopy. I haven't watered in 2 weeks. You can see the raspberry plant in the back completely croaked. That's because of spider mite infestation, I think. Not just solely due to the fact that that was a very thirsty plant and in a small volume of soil. I think the sweet banana pepper also greatly suffered from a spider mite infestation, and I saw strands of silk and I saw adult spider mites on this plant. So as you can see, the carpet mold problem is completely gone. I could just pour water on with abandon, and it seems like the whole pot is dry, but with this entire 1.5 liters of water going in, I think everything will be rehydrated with maybe just one more watering, and then I'll be filling the watering tray even. So this plant actually doesn't use a lot of water relative to how big the leaves are. I would have expected it to be much thirstier, but I think a lot of that leaf droop and malaise at the bottom of this plant is basically due to spider mite infestation, and I'll show you why. I think that with some evidence later, but for the time being, this mango seed smoothie layer This crust has become very porous like it has with all the other pots, and water absorption is basically really fast. So on day 107, I got some morning sun to film this in, and the leaves obscure a lot of the banana peppers, but as you can see, the plant's gotten really tall. It looks relatively healthy towards the top, but again, there's a lot of droopiness in the leaves. So the previous day, on day 106, I blasted everything on this balcony with pyrethrins because I saw lots of spider mites on this plant. As you can see, I'll show you that leaf that we just passed by in detail later. There are tons and tons of spider mites, and just on this one leaf alone. So there are other bugs as well. So when I spray this pyrethrin blast, I just close the sliding door pretty soon thereafter, so I don't have to get that smell or breathe that in indoors, although most of it is projected towards beyond the balcony. So as you can see, there are a lot more peppers on the way and a lot more flower buds on the way, so we'll get a lot of peppers, but I'm just going to end this series here. I reached the finish line. I got peppers, whereby the 60-day mark for the previous episode, I wasn't quite sure where this was going. I had a reasonable chance of success, but it turns out, despite the spider mite infestation, we got there anyway, despite not watering for 2 weeks while on vacation. And just the act of setting this pot down to get a better view caused one of these big old leaves to snap off. So this thing is in a precarious state, and I don't think it was due to dehydration. You can see evidence of spider mite infestation all over this fruit and all the others as well. So I think the spider mites really got the best of everything, and the pyrethrin sprays dropped so many of these things, maybe 10,000 or more, tens of thousands of those little buggers perished overnight and dropped down. So they do fall off the leaves after you spray. That's it for this plant growing series. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll enjoy my future content.